Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Environmental Sustainability Committee meeting, Wednesday, March 26th. Call to order. Any declarations, conflict of interest? Seeing none, and needing approval of the agenda. Moved by Councillor Twill, second by Councillor Beck. Thank you. Approval of the minutes from February 26th meeting. Moved by Councillor Beck, seconded by Councillor Twill. Any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, we'll move right into reports and discussions. 6A, FCM Climate Ready Plans and Processes Application. Alistair's up.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is to request a resolution supporting an application to FCM's Climate Ready Plans and Processes. So the application we've been working on is to support some actions that were identified in the Natural Asset Management Roadmap that came to this committee, I think in the fall of last year. Some of the activities that would be covered under this project would be some condition assessments for the natural areas owned by the municipality, some work to identify the ecological services, level of services, risks, and evaluation of those ecological services, working with community groups throughout the project, providing asset management training to staff, and updating the natural asset inventory. The overall project budget is $100,000, which 70% or $70,000 would be coming from this FCM funding if we were approved, and the other $30,000 is in our proposed operating budget that's coming in the next fiscal. And as part of the application process, before they can get to any contracting, they do need a resolution and some indication that the funds are committed before any of that can kind of go forward. So what we're seeking is just a resolution for council endorsing the project and showing that the funds are committed on our end for the 30%.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
So the funds is in the operating budget for this year. It's been approved through that. Question on the natural areas. How many natural areas is on municipal property in the city of Charlottetown?
There's quite a few. This would prioritize some of the larger ones that we might see as more significant. There's lots of parks throughout the city that might have small patches of trees that we would consider a natural area as well, but we want to focus more on getting the condition assessments of the natural areas that are more ecologically significant at first. And we have identified quite a few. There's a lot up in East Royalty, like the Acadian Forest area, going through Wrights Creek and Ellens Creek. There's lots of parcels that the city does have ownership over. So try and focus on some of those that are providing more ecological services, and what extent we try and figure out through this project.
Councillor Beck, you have a question?
No, I was willing to move it on,
Oh, okay.
or put the motion on.
Any other questions or anything from anybody?
Just a follow-up. Alistair, with this resolution and the work that you're looking to, that you're willing to, do here within the city limits, all the natural areas, let me ask you this, is the province doing anything similar?
They not, well, I guess not probably on this scale we're looking at. We're for more of the municipal scale, like a lot of these, the idea of natural asset management is more really trying to determine how these natural areas are providing services to the municipality, like stormwater management, air quality, stormwater management, flooding protection, carbon sequestration, and that the idea being if we didn't have these natural areas for some of these services, we would have to be investing in more engineered assets, like I guess a lot of different things that could be providing those same services, but the idea being we want to track these like we would our regular assets, and ideally making sure the conditions they're in are improving or staying as positive as possible, and trying to realize when we're going to need to do some actions to improve those, and when they might need some additional supports and things like invasive species where those might need to be removed so it can get towards more of a natural natural states. Not quite sure if that answers your question, but
No, I mean, it's pretty in-depth synopsis that you just gave. I just wonder sometimes, the work we do at the municipal level, if there's any similarities to what the province is doing. And just wonder if there's any cross-references or, is there any duplication or partnerships or collaboration, all of those things. And just wanted to get as much information as I possibly can. Look, I support it. I think it's a tremendous project, and it'll bring good information that we definitely can utilize here at the city. I just wonder, is there any type of coordination, or is there anything that the province is doing? Are we on the same page, or just where we're at there with the province? Because they're working on a lot of projects sometimes that are similar to what we're doing. I just wonder if there's any cross references or any duplication in that regard.
through you, Mr. Chair, as part of this, we would be reaching out to community groups as well as, it's not listed there, but we would try and talk to some of those institutions and the province as well, who do own significant bits of land within the city. We have noticed through some of the field work that some of those areas that the province owns or institutions owned are being kind of enhanced, or there's still a lot of damage from Fiona, so we want to through this engage with those landowners and make sure they kind of are part of this conversation, as we don't have all complete ownership over all the natural areas. It's very much a collaborative management practice, and any further plans would obviously have a lot of focus on that type of collaboration and making sure we're not, not in silos, not duplicating work.
Thank you.
When is the last time that the natural area inventory was done, for the city?
The initial inventory was done, I believe, in 2021 around the spring, and since then we've had some additional data from the province, their GIS teams, and through their other work, they update some of these layers and some of this information quite regularly. Some of it is not as regular, so it's something that we could go back to and update. And when we do get some more information, like the on-the-ground condition assessments, we can try and build that into the inventory, so it's easier to quickly find out where areas may need more work or what the state of a certain parcel might be.
Okay, no, thank you, Alistair. Councillor Beck put a motion on the floor. He supports to move forward to council. Any seconder? Seconded by Councillor Twill. All in favor, I guess? Thank you very much. 6B, Climate Action Plan. Katrina.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So yes, this report is to bring forward the climate action plan that we've been working on for quite some time. So it's attached, the complete 100-page document. We decided we wouldn't read the whole thing out to you. We have been working on it for a couple of years. The process, I think you've been kept up to date along the way, but just to remind you, there's been a lot of background research, benchmarking, and engagement with both key collaborators and the community at large to create the plan. It's meant to be the city's guiding document on climate action, both climate mitigation, so reducing greenhouse gas emissions, as well as adaptation, so building resilience in the community to those impacts we know will happen. It's intended to be a 5-year plan, but it's also intended to be a living document that will change and adapt as conditions change and adapt. It's not necessarily meant to be completely thrown out in 5 years, but it is intended to be heavily revised and for more engagement and updates to be made. So the plan consists of 10 themes. So those are climate equity and reconciliation, emergency preparedness, food security, efficient and resilient buildings, renewable energy and energy storage, sustainable transportation, natural assets and green infrastructure, adapted critical infrastructure, governance, and education and communication. So within those themes, there's 25 goals. So those are kind of the broader aims of the plan, not so specific. And then 111 actions, which are the specific action points that will move those goals forward. So in addition to those, which of course like are the bones of the plan, it also outlines where those goals and actions align with the province's 2040 net zero framework as well as their adaptation plan. It identifies key performance indicators and targets. It involves those lead city departments and the key community partners that will support the implementation of this plan. So while it sounds like there's a lot of actions, and there are, the responsibility for implementation will be spread across a large number of departments and partners. It also includes some GHG reduction forecasting and some high-level financial and economic implications. So just kind of to flag as well that engagement and collaboration were really central to the creation of this climate action plan. So we worked with a working group of approximately 65 stakeholders in creating it, and those were internal across the various city departments as well as external within the community and other levels of government. We also met one-on-one with all of the departments a couple of times throughout the process, so everybody's really been kept up to date, and we've made sure that the plan itself reflects what people are already working on, what they see as the vision for the department, and what they can actually have the capacity to implement in the coming years. And also just to note that we really put a big emphasis on engaging with the community at large. So approximately 1,000 members of the general public contributed their knowledge, their perspective, and their concerns to creating this plan. We know that climate change will impact everybody, but there are those that will be disproportionately affected, especially those who are vulnerable due to systemic inequities. So it was really important to us that those voices were captured in this plan. So with that, we know climate change is an ever-growing concern and that we need to be taking action. So it's staff's recommendation that City Council adopt the Climate Action Plan and direct staff across the organization to implement it. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Katrina. Reading through that last night, it's very in-depth, very specific. It's a good report. Any questions from council?
I have a lot, but
How's it
Alright.
I'll let Councillor Twill go first.
No,
Right.
fire
A
away.
lot of them are really, I just echo Councillor McKinnon's words, certainly thorough. And has a lot of, obviously when you look at the 1,000 members of the general public and 65 key stakeholders, so it was a lot of public consultation went in, which was great to see. My questions are really just around terms of understanding some things, so if you could
Absolutely.
bear with me, if you could refer to the pages.
I will.
So the term climate justice, I think I kind of understand that it's basically trying to, that's not a term I'm familiar with, so could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit for me?
Absolutely.
Just what that means exactly. I have my own understanding, but maybe just for.
Yeah, it's that intersection between climate action, climate change work, and equity, and building that equity within the community. So there's ways that we can take action on climate change that works towards justice. So there's also ways that we can implement climate action that detract from our goals towards equity and justice. So think about how we implement a program maybe around energy efficiency. We can do that in a way that gives access to lower income individuals or those who have experienced systemic inequities so that they have more access and that it's really building up those populations. Or we can do it in a way that maybe skews to being a more privileged population that can access those programs. And so by designing it in a certain way, we start to build equity, we start to build justice.
So would that be something like the recent heat pump programs that went?
Yeah,
for-
exactly. Or like Alistair's been working on a flood rebate program that
And there's a different scales in terms of what you're able to access.
yeah,
and
it also recognizes that that our climate action work and those systemic inequities at large are inextricable from one another. So we can't really meaningfully take action on climate change without also addressing those. So there might also be actions that don't seem like they're working towards climate action, like reducing GHGs or building resilience, but really they are just by the nature of building equity in the community.
Okay. Page 29.
Is this 29 in the document or
29
in your
on
package?
the document,
Okay.
yeah, it would be actually page 18,
Okay.
so page.
Perfect. No,
yeah,
29 is great.
Yeah, so it was talking about equity driven and informed and that it's a shared decision making that empowers marginalized populations and prioritizes solutions to reduce the equity gap. What does that look like? How does that play itself out?
So basically kind of part of it is what I was just speaking about, and making sure that the actions that we take and the way that they're implemented are serving all members of the community and especially those who might be more vulnerable. And then in terms of the shared decision making and empowering, it's really bringing in, I mean, all members of the community to really make sure that our choices and the way that this plan is implemented continue to be reflective of community priorities and needs.
Okay, good. Page 37.
Okay, let me just get there. Oh, I'm sorry, my screen is.
So this was looking at the expenditures and the, so in the savings and, so it was saying that, the expenditures, 74,000 per year over the next 15 years.
Yeah,
And then on the bottom of that page, it says the expenditures required to reach these community GHG reductions are estimated to yield the creation of 12,250 jobs.
yeah.
How does that happen?
It is a big number. So that came to us through work we did with Quest.
What's Quest?
It's a nonprofit in Canada. They work with generally municipalities on increasing on energy efficiency related projects. So like the particular program we worked with them on is called the Net Zero Communities Accelerator Program, and it's kind of like they help guide municipalities through like climate mitigation planning, that type of thing. And so part of what they did for us was this economic impact assessment. And I mean, these are very high level numbers. I wouldn't say they're super granular and specific, but what they look at is economic trends and the amount of expenditure anticipated based on the goals outlined and the infusion into the economy specifically within the sectors that would support the implementation of those actions. Now, obviously that's a very large number and we're a small place, but it's such a large amount of money. I think realistically, some of that probably would, I mean, ideally it would be here and it could create those jobs, but maybe it would also be off island. The other thing is some of those jobs probably would be temporary. And then the other component is that some of those jobs aren't necessarily like what you would think of. So they might be like the things that enable the other, like, so it's not necessarily like 12,000 solar installers, but it might be also the things that enable the solar installation workers
So
to
it's
do their job.
encompassing the economic spin-offs that would come from.
Exactly, yeah.
investing in this sort of thing. Okay. Page 45.
Okay, let's see if my thing wants to work again. Yeah, okay.
Planting fruit bearing trees.
Yeah.
What would that, how would that go? Like what, we plant them and then public can access them as they see fit?
Yeah, so we've already done a little bit of that across the city. A number of parks, like Des Brisay Park and Windsor Park already have whether it's shrubs or trees that are food bearing. I know Orlebar Park has some blueberry bushes. And yeah, so they're kind of just there for the public to access if they would like. Some of those locations already have signage that direct people to do that and some don't, and that's something that's on our radar that we would like to address and make sure people are aware that they're there. But as anything would be expanded, that would be a consideration too.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah.
All right, page 46. Am I still okay for my questions?
I'm good, yeah.
Okay. What's the Better Homes Neighborhood Energy Project?
Sure, maybe I'll let Nick speak to that if he wants to. project?
Yeah, through you, Chair.
I'm familiar with the Switch program, so I don't need that, but I don't know if maybe that was started before my time, I'm not sure.
So the Better Homes program was one that we've done we're on our fourth round of it now. It started by choosing a neighborhood that was involved in energy projects, and a lot of responses from that neighborhood on energy related things. So the first neighborhood was picked, and it was a Sherwood neighborhood, and we worked with Efficiency PEI to provide just for I think 40 homeowners in that first neighborhood to do an energy audit and a winter warming service, plus like an in-person consultation thing. All these things were kind of available to homeowners, but it just sort of wrapped it up into one big package. So we've been doing that program, it's on our 4th year now. The latest neighborhood was one in just around the area surrounding the golf course.
Okay. And are those designed, they're more for retrofitting or upgrading existing properties to make them more energy efficient, resilient, that sort of thing?
Yeah, the idea is just to get an energy audit done, get these quick and easy kind of upgrades done. That's the winter warming program. They will put in LED light bulbs and do weather stripping on doors. So it's nothing too huge, but it just gets them going in the right direction. Plus, the main advantage is this in-person meeting with the energy auditor, which is something you don't normally get too in-depth when you do an energy audit. So it just spends a little bit more time with them to let them know what programs are available and that sort of thing.
Okay. On page 47, it was talking about making that the goal is to have 100% of all types of homes using a non-emitting heat source. What are other examples other than heat pumps for that?
Well, there wouldn't, just electric baseboards would be one example. Those are expensive though. Heat pumps are kind of the main thing for that. With heat pumps, there's a few options, like the mini split heat pumps or more of a central system. But ultimately, the idea is to switch to electricity in the end, and with the idea that the electricity will become cleaner and cleaner in the years.
Okay. On page 48, it was talking about the promote sustainable urban development by implementing inclusionary zoning policies, eliminating single-family exclusionary zoning, fostering the development of affordable housing, and increased density. So these would have to be incorporated in our zoning and development bylaw first before they could be included in here, correct?
I think the goal is to have that here, and then it will inform how the zoning and development bylaw is updated and amended. That wording came directly from Donna in planning. I believe is something that we are required to do under the Housing Accelerator Fund, and so it's pretty set that that's an action we need to take. That's my understanding.
Okay, well, that could be problematic because that's going to be a point of discussion over the next little while, I'm sure, based if we go back to what we heard at the official plan consultation. A lot of that discussion centered around this sort of thing in terms of the density, in terms of the elimination of single-family exclusionary zoning. So I think that might have to be looked at pending what the outcome is of the upcoming adoption of the official plan and the upcoming adoption of our zoning and development bylaws.
Sue?
Just to speak to that, through the chair to you, Councillor, I don't think that this negates that exercise. I don't think stating that here negates the exercise of the public conversation on zoning and development bylaw changes and density. All it does is speak to how this action item would support the zoning and development path that we're on. So they'll run, they're a parallel course, but I don't think we want to have all of our actions mitigated on potentialities down the road. It's an action that's being recommended in the context of this exercise. It doesn't mean it's fait accompli and we have to absolutely do it a certain way. It's very general language about increasing density. So I don't think it's problematic that it's not predicating anything on zoning and development. It's just speaking to the importance of this related to climate action.
But Katrina just said that it was required or recommended to be included in there based on the recommendations from Donna.
Well, probably because it does tie into the official plan path. So it makes sense to consider it in this vein as well. But I mean, if it helped to say where it says lead department, planning and heritage, you could just put in brackets, subject to zoning and development bylaw work. And that would cover us off.
Well, it might have to be something in there, because I think that has to be, and again, I'm going back on what we've heard in council and what we heard again at our first meeting the other night.
Yeah.
That I think we could anticipate a fair degree of discussion around this very topic.
But I think, Counselor, this is general enough, if you read it, it's general enough that it doesn't say it has to happen throughout the entire city of Charlottetown. It just speaks to the importance of doing increased density.
Well, it's pretty specific. It says eliminating single-family exclusionary zoning. That's getting rid of the zoning.
Well, maybe just taking out the word eliminating would help. I don't think we should lose the action. We can soften the action statement by taking out the word eliminating.
Okay.
To get eliminating, but reducing, would that,
You could just talk about addressing,
Well, I think there has to be
Single-family.
something in there that subject to,
if we just address that in the lead department where it says subject to zoning and development bylaw amendments.
yes, and
Yeah.
because I think if this is out there, this is kind of if I'm just reading this.
Yep.
I'm looking at it and saying, okay, it's a fait accompli,
Yeah, fair enough.
but we haven't had that decision made yet.
Yeah.
And it is going to be a topic of discussion, as
Absolutely.
we are all well aware, so I think there has to be some kind of wording in there that kind of says, this isn't done, because if someone decided to look at that, I think they could interpret it in that way.
Well, eliminating single-family exclusionary zoning is maybe a little bit aggressive.
But it's
Because there will always be single-family residential properties, right? I mean, we're not going to wave a magic wand and make R1s disappear.
But if you read, again, I'm going back, Sue, if you read it, that's what the recommendation is, that's what the action is.
Yeah, no, I'm agreeing with you on that part.
Yeah.
With the word eliminating,
Okay.
yeah.
It's the exclusionary piece, so it's the eliminating that it has to only be cause there's, with the R1, I believe that it can, like, multi-unit, then it cannot be built in that location, is that correct?
R1s can include duplexes, I think, Richard, can they not?
I think in most places.
Yeah,
Okay, anyway, like I say, this came directly from planning, but we're happy to.
came directly from whom?
Donna, it's like a copy and pasted from Donna.
From official plan language or Donna's language?
It's what she sent me and asked me to
Okay.
include, yeah. So I don't know where she took it from.
We can work on
Just,
something.
I would just
certainly we
flag
can.
that one.
Yep.
Yeah, to the counselor's point. We don't want to create any hysteria prior to even going to public engagement on zoning and
Well,
development.
and that's why I guess if I'm looking at it, I think there has to be something put in there.
Yeah.
that This is not a done,
No,
because it sounds like it is.
yeah,
I mean,
and
if you're
and
just
so,
reading it just on the words alone.
so subject to, under lead department block would cover that off.
Subject to official adoption of the official plan and zoning development bylaws.
Yep.
57, sorry, 56.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm taking up time here, but
in the interim, before your next question, Sue, you raised the point, it's just for my own clarity. R1, that does do duplexes, I thought R2 is duplexes.
I'm not a planner, but I'm pretty sure there's duplexes on R1s.
Okay,
We can circle back on that, but,
you know,
I think R2s is duplexes.
yeah.
But
you
so
can't
are
do
you
duplexes
saying,
on
are you
R1.
saying that duplexes are somewhat found in R1 zones?
yeah,
Yeah, I think that's accurate. Sometimes there are duplexes in R1 zones, and I think they might have been there from the previous municipality prior to amalgamation.
Yeah.
That could possibly be,
But
Because-
now, I'm just looking at Hidden Valley with phase one,
Yeah.
it had to be R1 and R2,
that's correct.
R1 for single, R2 for duplexes, that's
As
what,
a new development.
as new ones
Yeah, but I think to Councillor Tweel's point,
grandfathered in.
there was definitely a lot of properties grandfathered.
Okay,
Yeah.
alright, no, sorry to get off track.
Again, that's prior to amalgamation,
Yeah,
back in 1994.
On page 56 with the light duty fleet electric by 2027, 2020, 2035, 2030. Is that still a target? Maybe Richard, I don't know if you could answer that? In terms of I'm just here, I've heard some concerns about the longevity of trucks and the charging, the time it takes to charge. Are we still on target with that? In terms of the electrification of our truck fleet?
So we recently purchased two and we are trialing them at this point in time.
To,
Light duty trucks
okay,
in our fleet, and they were just recently added just probably 3 or 4 months ago.
okay, all right,
So that's all new, right? So by that time, after we've trialed them, and also as the industry shifts, that may be all that you're able to purchase in the future.
okay, all right. Page 57, what's the slow street pilot project? What's the target area for that? What's the target speed? I mean, we have, like, what are we looking at?
To be honest, I'm really wishing Anna was here. I'm not 100% sure what, like, so you're asking what speed people would be allowed to go down that street? Do you
We
remember?
did a pilot
We did
in
a
the neighborhood
pilot.
before.
We did one on Gay Street.
Yeah,
And it was local traffic only.
Wasn't that a barricade at the end of the street or something like that?
Yeah.
Was. And it won't,
I think this is a little different though.
okay,
no, the intent that
Okay.
would be to look, I believe,
so
at the model
that's correct.
and see what would be most effective and.
So it would be nice, again, I'm sorry to improvise here, but it'd be nice to get the feedback. There must have been a written report that was administered through Public Works,
Yes,
okay? That was administered through Public Works. Our then manager, Scott Adams, was extremely involved. And there was pros and cons to it. At the end of, at the end of Gay, there was a childcare facility. But again, it was to discourage traffic that is not, from the residents that live there. And then, for some reason, it was discontinued. So it'd be nice to get that information from, Public Works would have that. So, we wanna make a note of that. I mean, I like the project. I would like to see it, in other parts of our city, especially, where vehicle traffic is using some of these neighborhood streets as shortcuts. And if we can discourage that traffic, all the better. But what happens is, when you discourage it on one neighborhood street, then the next street over, then they feel the pain because there's more, it increases that traffic. So there are pros and cons to it, but as a litmus test and some background information, that was administered through Public Works.
thank you, and through you, Mr. Chair. I think this recommendation in part came through conversations with Public Works.
Okay.
And I do know that they have results from the original pilot. I'm not sure what the speed was, but I know that they deemed it a success, and that part of why it didn't continue, in their words, was that there were capacity issues with continuing to implement it.
Right.
But I think the idea would being that moving forward, those findings would be used to refine the approach, and it would be continued to be piloted.
So I kind of think we have a speeding issue in Geraldton. And we have a stop sign issue in Geraldton. And both of them are ignored regularly. And I think so it's looking at not only on the environmental sustainability side, safety side, all that sort of thing. I think it's an interesting discussion to be had at some point in time. And maybe resurface that project and look at it a little bit more. So I think that'd be something that would be worth looking at down the road.
Well, just to follow up on what Norman said. You know, the other night when we were discussing the operational budget, I said to the chief of police, you know, talking about the speeding traffic, you know, going through these neighborhood streets, like, we have a speeding issue here. We have a lot of traffic violations in the city of Charlottetown, and we do not have the human resources to be able to deal with it. So, you know, from an environmental perspective, if that can help out, I'm all for it. You know, if we can work with police and help in any which way, shape, or form, I think it'd be fantastic. But you know, our residents are saying they want to feel safer in their communities. They want to be able to walk. And lots of times when that vehicle traffic are using streets like Upper Prince Street and the Walton Drives, Gerald Street, all in through there, Spring Park Road, all, you know, it's incredible the amount of traffic that are on these streets. And they're just gunning her. They're not going 25 and 30 kilometers, they're gunning her. And no regard for the people that are living in these communities. And a lot of these communities, we have elementary schools. You know, whether it's St. Jean's, Prince Street, Parkdale Elementary School, just to mention a few. So whatever we can do to help mitigate that, please put it at the top of the priority list.
I'm getting the end.
Not considering here, keep going.
Page 61, we're looking to increase our canopy coverage to 20.9% by 2035. Plant 8,000 trees per year in city, institutional, and private land. What's our current coverage? I know we get ripped in Fiona, what are we at?
We are at 17.6%.
Okay. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but is
It's not.
that a big gap?
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's a significant, it's a lot of trees we need to plant. In order to get back to that total, we need to be planting about 8,000 trees a year. Right now,
For how many years?
the next 10 years. And right now we're at about, last year we had a very good year and we planted a little over 3,000. And that was an exceptional year. Even maintaining that level is very hard.
Wow.
And that's just to get back to that's to get back to where we were when Fiona lost, when Fiona happened.
So we're looking at that rate, we're looking at 25 years.
More.
Forever.
Yeah, yeah.
Forever.
Yeah, I mean,
It's an uphill struggle, and you know that doesn't take into account the trees that we're currently losing as a result of ongoing development as well. However, on the flip side, we do have the zoning and bylaw development coming in, and the idea of creating rules around development requiring some tree planting as well will help.
okay,
Hopefully.
all right.
So where
Get
we're-
on that, Simon.
For the 3,000, is it like to get the trees here, or is it the labor to put them in the ground, or what's the challenge?
The biggest barrier is the staff it takes to plant the trees and the infrastructure, the structure we need to do that. So in order to plant trees, we need trucks, we need humans to plant their trees. We have to obviously back that up, and we have to plan that. We have to order the trees. It's a lot of background to do that. Right now, we're working with partners to achieve that 3,000. So we're using sounds a horrible word to say, but we're partnering with schools like Charlottetown Rural, for example, and they'll help us plant a few hundred trees. And we'll work with Colonel Gray. They'll come out and plant a couple of hundred trees with us as well. So we're really
That's smart though.
well, they're young and strong individuals.
That's good.
Are these mostly seedlings, or some of these like tree spade needed, or what do you?
The trees we don't get high school students to plant the ones that require backhoes. We find that to be a potentially worrying combination.
Well, it's good.
Oh, come on.
Gives them an experience driving a backhoe. Although there's always a future. For the most part, the trees that require the backhoe we are planting with our city tree crew. Then we also have seasonal student staff that come in that help us plant anything from the 1 gallon to like 15-gallon pots. The 15-gallon pots are quite large trees, so they might be 10 to 15 feet high, smaller diameter around them. But we are overachievers.
What was that program we had last year, the Operation Relief?
Relief.
How big were those trees?
Those trees were 10 to 15-gallon trees.
Okay. Just an interpretation on page 87. This was the GHG emissions per capita. I was looking at Charlottetown in 2015, we were 11.6 TCO E2E, whatever that measure is. I don't need to have to understand that, but again, kind of looking at the 17%, 20%, if we're going from 11.6 TCOs to 8.9 TCOs, is that good progress? Is that where we want to be? Is that where we should be? Like, I don't know how to quite interpret that. Can someone explain that for me?
Through you, Chair. Well, I think the best example here is just comparing to the rest of Canada, the numbers for Canada. We're already doing pretty well in Charlottetown. It's about half the carbon emissions per person as the rest of Canada, or as Canada in total, I mean. And so it's just taking where we were at in 2015 and reducing it still, even though we're already doing better than the rest of Canada.
And do we have like a 2030, well, I guess we're trying to get, is the ultimate goal net zero on that?
Yeah,
To get to zero on that? Is that the goal?
Yeah,
Or
eventually.
is that pretty,
I mean, at the moment, our goals are, we don't have a goal set around per capita, we have goals set around overall emissions. Partly because although, I mean, it's great to look at our trends per capita and it can help us tell a story in that, you know, maybe our overall GHG emissions haven't come down as much as we want, but we can see that because of population growth, we're still doing great because we've dropped per capita, but ultimately we wanna look at the overall emissions for the city and the community. Right now we have goals stretching out to 2040, and they're not net zero goals. They're right now for us as a corporation it's 60%, and as a community it's 75% reduction from 2015 levels. We haven't, for the most part, used that net zero terminology that the province is using, and there's a couple of reasons for that. It's perhaps something we'll do in the future, but we have heavily taken their guidelines and their sort of targets into account in creating our own targets. But the net zero terminology involves two things that at this point we're not really recommending or considering. One of those is purchasing carbon offsets or carbon credits, and the other is tracking our carbon sequestration. So because we're not really doing or considering those things at this time, the net zero terminology falls apart for us a little bit. So yeah, we're looking right now at for 2040, 60% reduction of our corporate emissions.
Yeah.
From 2015 and 75% of the community level. So
30% on the community, no, was it?
60 by 2040. I
The
think it's
community?
yeah, it's 30. I think maybe by 2030.
Yeah, okay.
If memory serves, I'd have to scroll up. But.
30 by 30?
Just two more,
Okay.
getting down there. Page 98, there was an urgent educating, incentivizing, and supporting residents and business in choosing low carbon, local foods and reducing food waste. What does the I understand reducing food waste and local foods, but what's choosing low carbon?
Yeah, so some foods result in increased carbon emissions compared to other ones. So a really good example that gets talked about a lot is meat.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's more because of the methane released as well as just the resources that go into creating meat, they're a higher carbon food, whereas something like a lentil is a lower carbon food. So it's yeah, looking at that type of thing.
Okay. And last question. Incentives for and support for commuters using public transit and including events and training that engage new riders with the transit system and work with partner organizations, educational institutions and businesses to incentivize. How do we do that?
Can you give me the page number?
Page 106.
Thank you.
It's a high priority, it's not an
It's
urgent priority, but it's okay.
So sorry,
6.2.2.
6.2.2, thank you. Yeah, so this is one that would fall under Anna's role. I think it could be that the city just works with businesses to implement some kind of programming for their employees that provides them with some sort of benefit for arriving via some sort of method that isn't a personal car. It might even just be that maybe they subsidize the transit passes. I think there's all sorts of ways that could look. But it would be something that would be figured out in partnership with those partners.
My list is complete.
So thank you for your questions.
Thank you for indulging me.
No, thank you.
I think put you in a hot seat there. Thank you. It was very thorough, I thought, but thank you for the questions and offered a lot of clarity. Councilor Beck. Any other questions or comments?
No, we're gonna discuss trees in our next
Yep.
agenda item, right?
Next two will be trees.
And tree planting is included in that, right?
The
We
next,
can certainly talk about it.
yeah, it'll be touched on the trees. All right, thank you, Katrina, Simon and Nick for your helping out. Spring tree orders, Simon,
Sorry, Chair.
Mr. Chair,
sorry.
we need you to vote.
Oh, sorry.
Move it.
So to move this on to council, I need a mover and a seconder, moved by Councilor Beck, second by Councilor Will. All right, thank you. Sure. 6C, spring tree order, Simon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So we had two requests for quotes were issued in February for trees for the city's annual spring tree order. As a capital expense, and for trees for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Growing Canada's Community Canopies project, which I will discuss a little bit more about the funding for that in a second. We had 5 submissions were received. Scoring for the bids was based on 3 criteria identified in the RFQ. An order fulfillment score was calculated for each submission based on meeting species and size specifications at the lowest cost, including transportation, and a sustainability score, based on a statement that the business provided to us. So the scores are provided. So our recommendation is that for the Charlottetown Spring Tree Order, street and park trees, Cool Breeze Farms Limited be awarded that contract for $44,892 plus applicable taxes. And for the Charlottetown Spring Natural Area Restoration Tree Order, which is the FCM project, that Dutch Master Nurseries be awarded that contract at $39,331. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
Thank you, Simon. Just looking over that, like, number 1 and number 2 are very close in total points awarded. What falls under the sustainability score? What are you looking at? Because that is what the difference is basically for both of these.
We're looking for specific examples of sustainable practices, and that covers a variety of different elements. So that might include things like different work practices involved. There would be different energy saving initiatives that are taken during the production of the trees, where the trees are coming from, all sorts of elements along that. We had 3 people score their sustainability, and that way, but it's not one person that really, because there is some subjectivity in it. So 3 people score it independently and then provide me with those scores. So it was very close. Cool Breeze did a good job of being very specific about the specific practical things that they are doing on site to be able to meet their sustainability criteria.
So with the shipping to here, would that be part of the sustainability?
That would be, I mean, for Cool Breeze and for Dutch Master, that would be the same for much of what they're doing on that side of things. As I say, it's very close between all of them,
Yeah, no,
which is
it's good.
a change.
Good. All right. Do you have a tree question, Councillor Twill?
Yeah, as you know, I've been bringing up trees, neighborhood tree planting and especially in the older parts of the city, are we anywheres, I know there's challenges, there's infrastructure challenges, but are we making any inroads in that regard? As you know, I've been bringing this up time and time again.
Agenda.
Yeah, no, it's true.
It's not on the agenda?
No.
Yeah, it's not relating, I guess, no,
It's
I
not
agree.
relating to this?
It's
No.
not,
Okay,
No.
fine, every time I hear trees,
yeah,
it's just a signal for me to beat the drum a bit.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it's not on, not involved with this particular agenda item, then I'll crack it another time.
Well, Councillor Twill, just through the chair to you, I mean, Simon would be, I'm sure, only too happy to sit down and have a conversation with you at any time about operational kinds of issues like that. It's just that we can't get into that in the context of,
Oh, that's,
the committee
that's,
meeting.
that's fine.
Okay.
That's fine.
thank you.
I'll move.
Second.
Move second, moved by
Yeah.
Councillor Beck, seconded by Councillor Twill,
Yeah.
thank you, well done.
Thank you very much.
Alright, and Simon, you're on deck for Federation FCM growing Canada's canopies.
Yes, so the city has secured $365,076 in funding from the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Growing Canada's Community Canopies program to plant more than 1,200 trees as well as additional shrubs and woodland plants across the city. We've chosen a few different sites where we're going to be doing some natural area restoration with this these funds. Windsor Park, Hermitage Creek, Ellens Creek, and the area surrounding Andrews Pond. The fund does require us to match the money that the FCM's providing us, and we've done this through a split between project staff wages and operating budget over 3 years. So that allows us to match the money for the entirety of the project.
Did we tap into this grant last year?
No, this is a new this is a new fund, and we were one of the first applicants for this fund. We beat down the door
Well
to
done.
get this.
Is this something that will continue on?
I think Simon's becoming the first star of this meeting.
I'll move it.
Alright, no,
Just a
Yeah.
question, where do we, like, is Victoria Park fall under a separate tree restoration canopy thing? Is it fall under its own sort of, does it fall under Parks and Rec, or does it fall under environment sustainability, like looking at the trees, or is it a joint effort between the two?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So Parks and Recreation and Environment Sustainability work very closely in partnership on this. It is, we tend to operationalize the planting of trees and do activities surrounding those things. We do have, we have got funding this year from the Trans-Canada Trails 2 billion tree program to do some planting in Victoria Park. So we're looking at planting a few hundred trees in Victoria Park with that. Those are small 1 gallon, 1 to 3 gallon size trees. We're also planting a lot of caliper sized trees, well, a bunch of caliper sized trees there this year as well, through our usual capital budget as well. We do that in consultation with parks, so we go to parks with a plan, we discuss it, and we figure out what meets both parties' needs. This year we are, as part of that, we are also doing we have a plan to start to restore some of the Fiona damage in the central region of the park that was particularly devastated by it. There's a lot of challenges in that area, so we've come up with a few different ideas of how we can go about that, and we're implementing some new ideas this year.
Have we chosen a similar direction to what the federal government did when you think about the national parks? They've left a lot of trees to decompose naturally. Have we followed a similar path with that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to a certain extent, there are, particularly in Victoria Park, there is a lot of woody debris on the ground, which is essential to regenerate the soil and to start to make the forest a more healthy environment. But certainly some has been removed from some of our parks as well, particularly the brush element of it. So trunks, as you probably are aware, once they're on the ground, are very hard to burn. It's the smaller branches that are the much more combustible element of them when they dry out and whatnot, whereas the logs tend to absorb the water and become harder to burn, and the standing dead wood and things like that.
Okay. Good, thanks.
Thank you. So moved by Councillor Twill, seconded by Councillor Beck.
Good.
Council?
Just one point on that, Mr. Chair. So it's been requested that the RFQs go to Finance Committee and then go to Council, so you'll be directing it to Finance.
And why does it come to finance?
I don't know if one of you wanna speak to that process, but that was the request made.
What was the question? Why or when?
Why does this award need to go to Finance before Council?
Through the chair, to Councillor. That is a process that's been happening for quite some time, and I don't know why, but finance is vetting all of these financial matters, even if they're in the budget.
Okay, needs to be another question. Is that redundant?
Are you asking for my personal opinion?
Yes. Well, yeah,
Through the chair to you, Councillor, yes.
thank you. What can we do to, we're always talking about revising our process here. What can we do to do the most prudent thing?
I
As
think that's
opposed
something that
to,
might have to go to strategic priorities.
Well, I think through you, Mr. Chair, to me, the logical progression into the chamber would be under the guise of the procurement bylaw work that we're doing
Okay.
now. Because the procurement bylaw, I would think, is going to direct the path for future tendering and that type of thing, so that, and Richard, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's that's part of the exercise
Okay.
of, is having a clear path from the point of tendering through into the chamber for the final nod, if you will, as to whether or not it needs to go through a couple of standing committees before it actually arrives in there.
I'll tell you why. There's a couple of examples over the last few years where a particular committee has come to a conclusion to make a recommendation to council. Somehow goes to finance, it gets overturned, and they decide what the bid is gonna be that council should accept. Then it comes to city council, so you got two committees competing with two competing bids, which to my mind is confusion and chaos.
And
And
I
it's
think,
cost us money because
yeah,
we were even, we had to settle
yeah,
on
and
a couple of occasions.
And that's a really good point, Councillor, because through you, Chair, to Councillor Twill, part of our conversation during the budget exercise was the position of the procurement officer. And if all of the departments have the support of a procurement officer, getting them through all the stages of procurement to get to council chambers, then all of the pieces that Finance Committee normally looks at to vet, as far as following the procedures and the evaluations and all of those pieces
Yeah.
are getting addressed at the staffing level.
Exactly.
So with the support of procurement staff and finance, they're helping the staff get through to council chambers with the right recommendation. And that's going to negate the need for finance committee to be putting eyes on these things going forward. That's my thought on how that
Well,
will work.
I concur and I agree.
Just one, I know one of our priority bylaws is a procedural bylaw update. I haven't gone back and gone through that with a fine tooth comb. I don't know if there's anything in there in terms of procedurally or I don't know whether that's all with council related or whether it might fall, there might be something in there as well too that we may have to look at in terms of those steps to follow to make that more efficient and move along.
Yeah, I'm not sure, did you notice if there's anything procedural about procurement?
I'm not sure. I know
I don't think-
we are working on it and we'll continue to work on it.
Procedural, they have their eyes on it now.
We're
Tracy's already
looking
sent
at
it
that,
out.
I think we have to have our feedback in by April sixth or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
so-
Tracy's already sent that out to everyone.
Yeah.
Alright, motion on the floor, all in
That's the
favor?
procedural, that's not the procurement.
No, separate.
No, but it might be procedural as to how we proceed with things like this.
Okay,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
because I sometimes I get flabbergasted by that whole process. You know, goes to finance and then all of a sudden, you know, they don't agree or they disagree and then it's over, our recommendation's overturned and they're bringing the recommendation to council when their department's not responsible. So anyway,
Sounds like that'll be looked into,
well, yeah,
which is good. So, all in favor of bringing the motion forward to finance committee? Passed.
unnecessarily.
Any new business?
Begrudgingly, by Councillor Twill.
Passing it along under duress.
Any new business?
Nope.
Motion to adjourn. Councillor Twill, second by Councillor Beck, thank you very much, folks.